Our color is from the top to the bottom is Barn Red, Rustic Red, and Muscadine Wine. And I've got, we're going to just jump right back into it with the Barn Red. Right now, I'm just putting the first coat of Barn Red down, a second coat of Barn. Right here is where my blend's gonna happen, about right there. So as I put this color down, I'm getting ready to blend after I get past this part right there. So you see how I'm just putting some color about right there? Because if you're going to blend, you need to have color going into color. You can't have dry paint. So this is where I'm going to stop. I'm not painting the sides of the doors right now. So mist, and we're going to switch over to Rustic Red. And I'm going about 2 inches below. Just getting some color on. I'm not ready to blend the two colors yet. Once you get that first level of color in, give it a quick mist, get some more paint, and then go into it. Notice I'm not using a different brush. I didn't even clean the brush off. I'm using the paint in the brush to kind of help me mix. Very, very soft, very light hand right now. And I'm looking for that color just to disappear to my eye. And I will tell you that on the screen it might not quite look like it's disappearing, but all right, and we're going to go to our next stage. The next stage is about right there. So we just need to get the color on there. I will go back later on and paint the sides of the doors and the top of the doors. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to, when you're blending, you don't really want to, I'm not going to stop and go and paint the sides. I'll do that later. I can do all that work. Okay, so we're just bringing that color down to about right there, about where I want it. You'll notice that I also have already done a slight blend on the first coat. Just kind of brought the colors together, but it always looks kind of, doesn't look its best when I do that. So blending twice is really good. Okay, so I've got about a 2-inch gap right there. And now we're gonna get misting. You see how I'm working top down? That way when I mist, the misting doesn't get into what I've already done. So here's where I'm mixing the two colors together. I call it like infinity symbols, just back and forth. Light hand, wipe off my brush, discharge some of that extra paint. Light, light, light touch. If you need another brush to do the blending, that's fine, but the colors are so close. And then I'll just come back into here, and I want to smooth out any thick layers of paint. You can hear the cabinet banging. I'll secure that better later on. So now I'm just putting the last bit of Muscadine Wine on the bottom of this. I will top coat this with satin top coat, and these colors will pop so well, especially the Muscadine Wine. The dark colors are really, they look great when they're top coated. All of it really. And here in just a moment, I'll keep an eye on the time, but here in a moment I'll demonstrate the shading part. So you can see how there's just, again, a little bit of an edge right there, but in my eye, it's hardly there. So the camera and the lights kind of messed that up. But in the middle has not been done. And so let's finish the middle. And once that's done, our blending's done, and I can work on some shading with y'all. So let's keep going. You'll notice I'm working in sections. because it's just really hard to do the principle of working quickly when you have so much going on and so much area space to cover. I'm moving my screws around because I always misplace those. Okay. All right, so if you feel like you're gonna mess up a section because you're working right next to it, then I would take a break, let it dry, and because there is a slight chance that you could mess up a section. So just, you've got to decide what you want to do. The left side's already dry. I did that last night, so it was ready for our live today. But I think we're going to be okay. I'm going to just work. The top's really just barn red. Hopefully you all like it. Everything's looking good on your end. Definitely would love for you to go over to, after we're done later on, go over to YouTube and subscribe over there. Pretty much almost all of my Dixie Belle lives and some of my Bowtie Treasures Facebook lives go to YouTube. So if you like a large library of tutorials, there's plenty over there. I'm always glad to share that with you. So this is not my first time to blend. So if you want other blending demonstrations that I've done, they're there. The other option is you can go to Dixie Belle's video section and do a search for Aaron. All my videos have my name in it, so you can search for Aaron, and pretty much all my live videos are there as well. They just won't be as refined or cleaned up because usually from YouTube I trim them down to about 20 minutes or so where you can really follow along. But right now I'm literally just putting the second coat of barn red on there. I'm excited to show you the blend shading here in a little bit when we get to using the coffee bean. So we just need to get about right there, about an inch or so below this ridge, and we'll be ready for the next color. You see how much I'm using my misting bottle? Keep it wet, never want to work dry. As soon as it feels sticky, you're going to have a horrible time blending. Well, I say that. Prove me wrong, right? You're welcome to try it sticky and hard to move, but you don't want that. I'm just looking for places I may have missed. Okay. I love blending too. You don't need a lot of paint, but okay. So that is probably the end of barn red for now. So I'll put that to the side. Now I'm picking up rustic red. Same principle, start below, not into right away. So right now, you're kind of putting down your mixing base. And what I mean by that, it's some extra paint you're going to need to blend into it. So I'm just going to about 2 inches below. I'm just repeating the same steps we did on the side. Okay, so this just gives me somewhere to go, but this color that I'm about to put down is what's going to be my mixing color. So I'm getting a little closer to the color now. A little more paint. Now I'm going to go into the barn red. You can see my brush kind of going back. I'm not doing light pressure right now. It's a little dry. Let's do a quick mist, not a lot, just a quick mist. Now this is where I'm going to do just like very light. Disguise those brush strokes, hide them, and now I'm just feathering it out, and that's it. Just sit back. Remember, I'm going to have original hardware. It'll all be polished up. It's also going to be gold, so I'm probably going to bring in some, what's the word? Gilding wax. So I'm going to go ahead, at this point, I'm going to continue to work my way down until the the Muscadine Wine section. So this color is going down. And remember, I'm looking at my reference points, which is pretty much right there. So I need to get about halfway down this drawer, and then we'll start getting the Muscadine wine. You can choose wherever you want. Sometimes I like to transition where the hardware's at, sometimes I don't. It just, you know, it just depends on the size of the piece. And that's probably far enough. And we're done with Rustic Red. All right, so this is Muscadine, and I'm about 2 inches below. And you can see I'm moving fairly quickly. That's one of the tips that I gave at the beginning. 3 tips you want to use with blending: work quickly, keep it wet, and use a light hand. The light hand comes at the final touches. Need a little bit more water here. And now this color I'm going to blend into the Rustic Red. And the magic happens before your very eyes. At this point right here, you could use another brush, but as I mentioned before, the colors are close in value, and I'm using a very light hand. And I don't mind having a little brush strokes in my project. Just wiping my brush off. Touch, just a touch, no brush strokes. If you could feel my pressure, it's like a whisper. Okay. Soften anything else up. And now we can finish up the Muscadine wine. I don't have to work so quickly down here, but I'm in a hurry to get to the next step with you guys. So thanks for hanging in there. You know, anybody that like a few more tips on blending, I trust that this video would be of help to them. Feel free to throw it their way. If you need to find a retailer in your area, or you want to check out the products that I'm using, there's a link in the description you can use. All right, we are done. 3-color ombre blend. As I said before, the colors need some time to settle down. You can see right here, I'm a little higher. And then over here, it dips a little bit. Most of that won't come out, I don't believe, in the pictures. If I have to, I will redo this drawer. But overall, like I said, with all the lights, the paint's wet, I really wait till everything's dry before I really worry about redoing. You can't redo it while it's wet anyway. You're gonna make a horrible mess. You just need to let it dry. If it needs another coat, do that. So those 3 colors are done. We're gonna move on to our last step of the night. So the next technique that I want to talk about, I like to use the word shading. I'm not sure, but it just feels like I'm adding some depth and shading, and so you may have a different word for it, but it's my way of highlighting the details of the project. Oftentimes you'll see the technique used by many, and maybe even yourself, what people might use wax. So I just like doing it this way because the main reason is I can use any color I want. I'm not relying on just any wax color. And tonight we're going to use coffee bean. There you go. Coffee bean I chose because, one, it's in the red family. I could use caviar, which I felt was probably a little too black. Chocolate, a little too brown. Coffee bean just has a little bit of that red in it without being black. And so I'm going to use that tonight. And let me just grab one of Dixie Belle's. Have you purchased or used their craft brushes yet? It comes in a set of 4, and I really use them quite a bit. And this is one of them that I'm going to use just to kind of give us a little bit of detail edge. The other brush I like to use when I'm doing this technique is the French tip. And really any brush, the reason I like that is because it has the natural bristles and the tapered edge. So this is dry, and for the most part, it's looking really nice the way I want it to look. Cameras and lighting and all that stuff. You kind of have to wait till it's done. When I stage this, you'll get a better feel. But I like to be careful, because oftentimes what happens is, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm already spraying water. Oftentimes we don't have the right lighting. I like to a lot of times light it for how the customer might see the piece. And unless they've got like bright studio lights in their house, the piece isn't going to look like that in person. Okay, so for this technique, I'm going to mist. You got to have water or this technique will not work. I'm going to take just a little bit of paint. Just put some paint on your brush and just put it in the cracks. Any or all, whatever crack, however much paint you want. You can do a wider or bigger brush than I'm doing if you want a really big blend. And I'm going to mist this natural bristle brush so it's not dry. I'm just going to fade, soften. Remembering that this paint's dry, you wouldn't want to do this on wet paint. There we go. Okay, so we're just giving it a little bit of a touch. Have a brush handy. Now keep in mind, it's darker here because the value of this red is lighter than the, down there you can't really see it. And this is another situation where you might say caviar might be a better choice, but I just felt like caviar was a bit too dark. I just want this to be subtle, and so far it's doing a good job at being subtle. But it is going to stand out more on the top where it's lighter. So there's the color. And now I'm just, if you need to mist again, whatever you do, keep this paint or technique will not work. One last tip, I would usually have a wet rag handy and clean up any areas. I don't want the shading on top of this. I'm not rubbing very hard, okay? Just lightly to remove any areas I may have missed. Let's do along the bottom. No, that's a long ways down there. Go wide if you want. I'm going to put a little extra down here. So you can see how it's making that a little bolder, a little more pop to it. Just put a little bit of spritz on there. So you kind of feel how this could be treated or look like I waxed it. And that's okay, that's what I'm kind of looking for. I love this technique, I use it a lot. If you follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you would see I have a playlist that has this technique in it, so I do it a lot and I really like it. I could do more of these details, I can do down here. Sometimes I like it to be more weathered and not. Never used it for anything but waxes. Well, welcome to a whole new world, right? I'm going to put some more paint up here. The misting bottle can leave a little bit of a spritz on some of your previous work, like of this shading, but it shouldn't cause too much problems. It's not going to mess up the chalk paint you did. I also do not top coat before doing this. The key is keep it wet. You're not going to have any problems. Now, I'm not doing like a 10-foot section either. Most of these are just a few inches, so. What did I just do? Somehow or another, I must have got paint on my rag and it's flicking paint on my piece. So anyways, yep, there it is, right on the edge of my rag. Okay, so that side's done. Let's move around and let me show you the front and we'll be done tonight. Okay, so let's work on this panel and this drawer here. Get my supplies again. Let me grab a different rag so I don't spread that paint anywhere. So step one, See what, let's start it a little bit more dramatic right there. Mist the area. It's still wet over here, but the misting's not affecting it too much. Here's where you need to decide, do you want to do inside, outside, or both? I'm just going to do inside, okay? I think that's, I'm just popping this panel out a little bit. Usually I want to be fairly consistent with how much paint I'm putting. So I'm kind of going around the whole thing. I might be a little heavy-handed with it right now, but I'll wiping off my rag. You be as light or as heavy. You can custom mix these colors if you want. Meaning if I don't want coffee bean because it's too dark, well, maybe mix some coffee bean with some Muscadine wine. I could use Muscadine wine here. So you see how I'm basically softening. And then I'm gonna wipe off my brush. There may be some areas that, you know, you feel like I've got too much. Just be careful here. Whatever you do with this rag, you need to soften back out on the inside. Right now I'm even wiping off the edge. So I'm just gonna come back really soften anything I just touched with my rag. You do that right there and it's a soft fade. But the contrast, the hardware is gonna scream really beautifully in there. So remember this technique, it's gonna be heavy here or prominent here, and as we go further down, you're just not gonna see it. Misting. Back to the coffee bean. I've even done it where I will fade out, like I won't go all the way down. That's kind of cool too. You can use this brush I'm using right now, you can actually use it to soften that before you even bring the French tip on it. Like I'm doing right now, just kind of go ahead and scribble some of that in there. Just make sure whatever you're doing right now, it's wet. Or you're just not gonna do any, it's not gonna move. You need that to move. Like right now, it's a little too dry up there. And you know you're doing a good job when you start the edge of the dark color starts disappearing on you. So on my YouTube channel, go to the playlist shading and you'll see several pieces, several colors, several scenarios. I've made grungy looks, dramatic looks, but I like to do this a lot just because it really makes details pop. Okay, so now I'm going to come back, finish it up. I'm going to just remove some of the dark coffee bean color on the raised panel, which I will come back probably later on and hit it with some gold gilding wax to really tie in the hardware. Sometimes I do wait till the hardware's clean, make sure it's not a different color, but it should turn out gold and nice. So that's it. That's how that's gonna look when that's all top coated in gold gilding wax. It's gonna really make a difference. So when we look at from a distance, you can see like the example here, it's okay, but on that one, this one here, it's a lot more dramatic. If ever you feel like, wow, I really messed it up or it's too heavy-handed, worst case scenario, this is solid color paint over it. And just do it again. Now down below where I blended, you know, it's a little bit more extra work to fix it, but I rarely have gone back and redone that. It's a more of an overall aesthetic that just kind of works out. And by the time you get the hardware on there, the hardware just completes the picture. So sometimes I just learn not to stress over it till it's done. And then you just kind of say, it looks great. It's furniture art, right? Until next time, I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. Thanks so much for joining us. Dixie Belle, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm always glad that you all come in to see what we're up to. Till next time, we'll see y'all later. Be creative, do something awesome. Until next time, take care. See you later.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.